My family descend from Jamaica. My grandfather is half Syrian, and my grandmother's Jamaican. My mum comes from Yallis, St. Thomas in Jamaica. My dad comes from Kingston, Jamaica. So I've got 2 older brothers and a younger sister. Grew up in Brockley, southeast London, Crofton Park. Dad left very early. Dad left when I was about 18 months. And it was one of those where I saw him in like 10-year spells kind of thing. And my stepdad came in, must have been about 5 or something, 6. That's where I remember him from. And he wasn't a nice fella. It was pretty much, it was rough when I was younger. Being the youngest boy, you know what I mean? I was a little bit, I wouldn't say I was bad, but I was scally. I was very extrovert from a young age. I'm very confident, and it rubbed people up the wrong way, especially my stepdad. He didn't like me at all. My mum she was an alcoholic. My mum was an alcoholic. She didn't even know it. And it's only when I got to Arsenal and stuff like that, and I went on the steps with Paul Merson one time, and I realised, and it was really, it was one of those where all of a sudden I realised my mum's an alcoholic. She was quite abusive alcoholic as well, in respects of always abusive, very abusive towards me. I can't remember being hugged much by my mum. You know what I mean? You think back to moments and stuff, and even when I used to go to the football trials and trying to get into the clubs, I remember when I used to go to the trials, my mum used to say, another thing I didn't understand till I got older, many are called and few are chosen, you're wasting your time, kind of thing. And so I really couldn't wait to get out of the house. As I got older, I got more angry towards my mum, and obviously my daddy died the other day, and I went to the funeral, and it was weird. It was like going to a stranger's funeral. People were saying things like I should be talking, because, I don't know, I'm in the public eye and people know me, they think I should be up there speaking and eulogising about him. I don't fucking know him. I do not know the guy. The only reason why I gave him any moment of my time is I remember we was 10, and we used to live on a estate called Honor Oak Estate, and the whole estate would go on a trip to Little Hampton or Great Yarmouth or Margate or something like that. And I remember I didn't have no trousers to wear. Just didn't have no trousers, proper trousers to wear, because it was one of those where the whole estate was going, and you know what I mean, everybody was there and you wanted to look good. And my dad said, I remember I hadn't seen him for, I don't know, by this time, 6 years or something, and then got in touch with him through this one, through that one, and he said, yes, I'm gonna come on Friday to give you some money to buy the jeans. And I remember waking up on the Friday, because I had to go to Peckham to buy them, and I remember going past Grant's, the shoe shop, and just looking at them with my tongue hanging out, because I wanted those ballet crisp, beautiful shoes I couldn't have, but my sister would get shoes from Grant's. It was really weird, but anyway. So anyway, I'm waiting on the estate, and as you go out, you drive out the estate, there's 2 pillars. So I was sitting on that pillar said he's coming in the morning, I said about 9, 10 o'clock. So I was on the pillar from 8:30, 9 o'clock. He didn't get there till 4 o'clock. And all that time I'm thinking, I'm not gonna be able to go. I think it's one of the most, when I look back, it is the most stressful time, and even being in prison, being sat on that pillar, waiting for him to come, not knowing if he was gonna come, not knowing if I was gonna be able to go the next day, because I didn't really have anything to wear that would have been decent enough. And is he gonna come, ain't he gonna come? The questions and the anger and everything, what I was going through at the time, but he came. And I literally got to the shop just in time in Peckham, and I got the trousers, and that's the only way that I spoke to him in any way. Otherwise, that would have been it. I would have disowned him, just like I would disown my stepdad. I remember when we was younger, match of the day and watching football is literally, it's all I live for, man. It was just pure football from a young age. And I remember it used to come on, and because we was in the 1 bedroom, so if the television's here and the bed's here, we'd be in the bed, and we'd have to turn away from the telly. We couldn't watch it, so you can hear Match of the Day, and you know, you can hear Match of the Day, and you can hear what's going on. And I remember lying there, facing the wall, crying, wanting to watch it. And he was a rough voice, rough talking guy, real bully, very strong man. And we'd have to turn away, and we couldn't watch it. I remember when I finally got to do Match of the Day, I remember saying to Des Lynam, you know, this is my Graceland. Like, you know, people go to Graceland to pay homage to Elvis. You know, it's one of those things where I try not to harbor on the anger, because even now, you know what I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm just raging. And, you know, when you think of why people are like that, and I suppose it might have gone down to why maybe I adopted Sean at such a young age. Sean was like 2 and 8 months, just getting ready to turn to 3. And I could not understand, even with having nothing, how somebody could come in and treat a child like my stepdad treated me. And it's feelings that I harbor, that even with the counselling, it's very hard to try and shake them off. It's very, very hard. The first real positive male in my life, and is a teacher called Mr. Pigden. And it's funny because, like, on the Twitter right now, the people are banding around this show what I've done. Little help from my friends that I've done with ITV, building a venture playground for the kids over this disabled kids over in North London. And I thought that this teacher, Mr. Pigden, the words I got from the people was that he died. And I was, you know what I mean, at the time I was like, oh, Jesus, gutted, because he was somebody who would sit me down, he would talk to me. When you know, when I had he used to call it the EBGBs, because I would get angry from being like this to full-on rage. And he would sit me down and he would talk to me and he'd explain to me, you know what I mean, how to communicate. I was like a little, like Tarzan or something. So then he took me out of the class. He literally taught me to read and write properly himself. He turned me into a monitor. So I would go around with the school register to come collect the registers up. I would be the milk monitor guy. You know what I mean? I'd take messages to the teachers. And then once he realized I could play football and everything, he started to teach me how to play football, and how you have to pass to other people, and why you have to pass to other people, and why you have to communicate nicely, and why you have to give people encouragement. And so, like I say, when I met him in this situation, I'm at Highbury, you know what I mean, I'm doing this thing, it's all emotional stuff, and all of a sudden the teacher I thought was dead comes from behind me.
Hello, Ian. Long time no see.
Mr. Pigden, you're alive.
I'm alive, he says. How are you doing?
I can't believe it. Someone said you was dead.
As you see, I'm very much in, and I'm so glad you've done so well with yourself.
And I literally started to cry, like I was like, I don't know, a 5, 6-year-old, uncontrollable crying because of how happy I was to see him. And, you know, when I watched it, that is when I realized how much of an effect that man had on my life, and how important it is to have a positive male figure in your life. I grew up on the same estate as David Rocastle. We used to play football up the Creme. I was always the one that people would say, yeah, he's the good older one, and David's the good younger one. But then all of a sudden, David's just kicked on and gone to Arsenal.
It's completely by Webb. Rocastle, a central figure again, and he looks to trip Schmeichel, and it's in. A goal for Arsenal. David Rocastle.
I wasn't envious of it, because it wasn't a case of people making it in them times, it was about money. It's just that because I thought I was such a good player, but then again I got refused by so many people. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know. You know what I mean? Could be down to me. The attitude, like, you know, when I was a kid growing up, the attitude might have been something that people saw that it wasn't right time to take me. But you know, I was always thinking, well, gosh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. I tried. I went to all the trials. I wrote to all the London football clubs. I got answers from Orient, Charlton, Millwall, Crystal Palace. They all said, you know, we ain't got no spaces, this and that, which was fine. And then all of a sudden you get a letter, we're having trials this day, went to the trials, done the stuff in the trials. This is from like, I'd say 10, 11, straight up till 19, trying to get into these places. And it just didn't happen for whatever reason. So after that I said, football, I'm not bothering with it. It's over for me. I had to work in tunnel refineries over in Greenwich. And you know, I had to clean out like the toilet-y kind of bathroom with a lot of oil and nastiness. It was horrible, it was degrading, it was horrible to do that. But at the time, you know, I was what, I must have been 19, 20 then. Sean, that was on the go. I think she was pregnant with Bradley. And I had to do what I had to do because, I don't know, 18 months earlier, I was in Chelmsford prison for offences, cars, you know what I mean, driving cars, no insurance, you know, no tax, you know what I mean, kept getting caught, not paying the fines. I remember going through all taking you into a room, they debriefing you, doing what they're doing, giving you the clothes and all that, coming out, blah, 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 bang, go to the cell, slam the door, honestly, burst into tears like a child. Couldn't believe where I was, you know, and it was almost for me like it was for me an eye-opener from God saying, listen, you know, you've got to focus on what you're doing, you've got to work hard, and you know, all I ever wanted to do was play football. I was working, I was in it now, I was starting to move up in the tunnels place, just getting a decent job, showing younger guys what to do, letting them clean out the shit jobs and do that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden I got a trial from Crystal Palace because I carried on playing Sunday morning football from the age of 12 all the way up to the 22. And then when they said Crystal Palace came for the trial, I said, sorry, no way. I'm not going to do any better than I did at Brighton when I was 19. So, you know, I can't waste my time. I can't afford to lose this job. Just got the job, I'm settled. And, you know what I mean? So I said to them straight off, no, thank you. I said to the guy. And I remember the guy who used to do my manager in my Sunday team, Tony Davis. He said, you can't turn down an opportunity like that. I said, bro, I think I'm going to have to, because I have to make a decision. The decision is to carry on working and earning money and providing. And then they come back again, and I said to the guy who I was working with, Gary Twidell, who, funnily enough, Gary Twidell, he was an apprentice at Arsenal. And he said, listen, you don't get many opportunities where something like this comes along. Being a footballer is the greatest thing. He said, I had, 2 years in it as a right back, and it's the greatest thing in the whole world. You're playing football and people are paying you to play football, and people want to watch you and you do well, people worship you, they love you and this and that. I said, I can't afford it, I can't afford to do it. And he said, you know what I do? I try and keep the job for you. So I went to the trial, and I think my attitude was, well, okay, I've got 2 weeks to play football, and then hopefully I'll get this job back, everything will be fine, you know what I mean? So I'll just go and just play some football. And literally I just went and just, it was really good. I don't know, my inhibitions were gone because I felt like I had some stability within maybe trying to keep the job for me and somebody in my corner there. And so when I went there, I just played football. Like, by the time the 2-week trial finished, you know what I mean? Steve Coppell pulled me and he said, you know what, we want to pay you some expenses and we want you to stay for a little while longer. I said, not even realising I'm negotiating without knowing I'm negotiating. He must have thought, yeah, he's negotiating. But I wasn't. I was telling the truth. I said, listen, I'm not sure. I really can't afford to do the football. I've got a missus, I've got a little boy, and I've got one on the way. And he said, well, how much are you getting from what you're doing? And I said, I'm getting £105 a week. He said, well, we'll give you £100 expenses a week for a couple of weeks, just see how it goes. And I said, well, that doesn't really make sense for me because you're going to pay me. That means I'll be off for a month, and then after a month, and there was players there who had been in their reserves who ain't got nowhere near it. So after a month, you know, you might say, well, I'm sorry. I said, I can't afford that. He said, okay. Then he said, okay, come see me tomorrow. I came back and he said, okay, we'll do it. We'll do it for 3 months. And then I said, yeah, I'll take that. phoned my mum and I said, Mum, I'm a professional footballer, but it's only for 3 months. And so she was crying and I was crying and that, and it was brilliant. But then 6 weeks into that, they signed me. We got to the final for Crystal Palace in 1990 against Manchester United, ready, and he makes me substitute. So, you know what I mean, I'm thinking, Jesus, I might not get on. Anyway, we're losing 2-1. And I get to come on 72 minutes, 73 minutes. Within like 2 minutes, I score a goal. My face was just like, I can't even describe it. And then it all got on top of me. And then it gets to extra time and I score again. And then Mark Hughes scores, makes it 3-3. We lose the playoff, the replay, and you know what I mean, the rest is history. But when I realised that I reached is that like, so the Friday before, the Saturday, you know, I could walk down the street. Everybody knew, yeah, he plays for Crystal Palace. But then, the Monday after the Saturday, I remember going out and people literally stopped the cars on the main road, both sides, down where my mum used to live, and for me to like sign autographs, and it was strange. Arsenal is, you know, it's the greatest. When I first got to Arsenal, you know, people they went on the streets with the vox pop saying, "What are we buying in for?" And I think the week before they scored about 15 goals, and they're saying, "What are you buying in for?" I remember watching the telly, just sitting there watching the telly, and you know, the News at 6, whatever it was, and watching people talk about it. He's not good enough to play for Arsenal. You can't get him to come to Arsenal. We got Merson, Campbell, this one, that one, Smith, and Alan Smith just got 2 golden boots. And I swear to God, I sat down watching the news, literally shitting myself. So the night before, I went and stayed at David's house in Mill Hill. I said, I don't want to be late for my first day. I wanted to set the right impression because it's Arsenal, the Arsenal. And that's what David used to always say, the Arsenal. And I remember we got there and we talked about Arsenal till about 5 in the morning, man. Talking about what it's like, because remember, I just joined the champions. I was honestly so nervous. Anyway, we're talking about what it's like playing Tottenham, what it's like, what the fans are like. You know, because by now, remember, like I've done my bit at Palace and people know me, but David's national. Everybody knows him. When we were training, you know, people used to always say Arsenal don't play football. I literally was running around like a headless chicken trying to get the ball off of these great players, man. And I was so poor in that. I was so nervous. I was so nervous that I'm sure they must have thought, what have we got here, man? The ball was bouncing off my legs and everything. David literally pulled me through without even knowing. He focused me. Even when I doubted myself with scoring all the goals, even when I went to Palace, you know what I mean? I just kept working harder and harder. And for me to get to go to Arsenal with David Rocastle and play with him, and then, you know, in our first league game, so I scored against Leicester in my first game. In our first league game, David scores the first one and I score a hat-trick. It was a dream. All the time I always thought that he was going to be okay, and he was still always positive about what's going to happen. I mean, when I found out, I literally could not stop crying. I couldn't stop crying. I remember when George Graham got rid of him and he went to Leeds, I couldn't stop crying then as well. And he was saying, "What's wrong with you, man?" And you know, when he died, I can't deal with it. When I look back, you know, I could get all deep and say nothing to something. You know, nobody's nothing. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you know, as twee as that might sound, you know what I mean? You're always something, and what I feel that I've become is what's always been inside me. It's just anything I do, I would speak my truth. I give it my best. I'm honest to the core, and I've always been like that. So to be able to be here now as a grown man, 50-year-old man, you know, I wouldn't change anything. What I'm saying is what I mean. I'm saying what I feel from a place of pure passion and love, and that's not just for football, that's just for life. You know, when you're younger, you know what I mean, you think everything's against you. But then I remember when I'm in school, there's kids in the school who are trying to pay attention, and there's kids like me jumping on them, doing stuff disruptive and being like that. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, if someone like Mr. Pigden casts someone like me aside, you know what I mean, what am I going to become? I would like to pray and hope to God that I wouldn't have gone the wrong side of the law. And you know, I know that what I've become now, I wouldn't have. You know, I can't say I'd change a thing. I took my opportunity. And what I know is that when people talk about English strikers, I know I've got to get a mention. I've got to get a mention.